Better
Good.
better to be careful than not. One time, one of our first ones, I had Neil as my backup recording person. And when I moved him to being an attendee versus a speaker, it shut the recording off. I'm like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
oh my God. So, but we're all on camera already. So I was like, all right, smile, don't panic. Look at the bottom of the screen. There's got to be a record button somewhere. So I just went back to one of the speakers and I said, can we just, do the last like, you know, 2 minutes of you, and then we just edited it back in. Um,
Can everyone hear this?
What
yeah,
is this?
That's me tapping my mic. You can hear that?
No.
What about this?
No.
that you can hear. Yeah.
You do hear it? Okay. All right. Then we're good.
It's just,
Just is
it's just,
that the signal for we should maybe stop talking? We've said enough, or
No,
what?
nothing like that. I wasn't being.
we'll send a little note to you saying, okay, let's go, move on.
Move on.
No, it'll be really good. Okay, it's just 10 o'clock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start letting everyone in, because my little sort of welcome, if you will, takes like 3 minutes. And other people, once I open it up, people will just come in organically. I won't have to let them in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start the webinar. Let's get started. And then I can see as participants are coming in. And then what we'll do is I'll welcome everyone. Great. All right. Good luck, everybody. Hello, my name is Kimberly Fine. My partner Neil Handwerker and I have co-founded EXJ to support lawyers considering or committed to moving from law to non-legal business roles. In doing so, we have created this webcast series, If I Leave the Law. Today, we will explore non-legal careers in the world of insurance. This event will be recorded and will be available on demand via the Ex Judicata website. We will be monitoring the Q&A. Please submit your questions. We are also using the upvoting feature. So if you see a question from a fellow attendee you would like answered as well, please click the upvote panel. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speakers. Lynn Haley Pilarski is in corporate risk management and insurance for General Motors. Currently, Lynn is responsible for drafting insurance terms and conditions for all commercial contracts globally. Lynn also manages the placement and administration of management liability programs and associated claims activities. Sarah Downey serves as Executive Vice President, U.S. Financial Services Head of Operations, as well as Blockchain Digital Asset Advisory Leader. As the Blockchain Digital Asset Advisory Leader, she is focused on positioning Lockton as a trusted advisor, thought leader, and solution developer for ensuring blockchain and digital asset companies in the risks that they face. Peter Critchell. Peter serves as Assistant Vice President, Executive and Professional Lines at Berkshire Hathaway Specialty Insurance. Peter has over 20 years of experience as an industry claims executive. And then our moderator, Justin Smolison, is the Business Content Manager at RIMS, the Risk and Insurance Management Society. He is the host and producer of RIMScast, the official weekly RIMS podcast. I would like to thank Justin and our speakers, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending. It is now my pleasure to turn it over to Justin.
Thank you so much, Kim. It's a real pleasure to be here. And quick personal note, Kim and I go way back about 15 or 20 years to a previous mutual employer, American Lawyer Media, and we've stayed in touch. And it's just a real special thing to be a part of this with you. So thank you so much. My name is Justin Smolison. I am honored to be your moderator. I am, as you heard, the business content manager and the host of RIMScast at RIMS, the Risk and Insurance Management Society. Now, we are a global society that empowers risk professionals to make the world safer, more secure, and more sustainable. Through networking, professional development, certification, advocacy, and research, RIMS and its 80 chapters serve more than 200,000 global risk practitioners who are based in about 75 different countries. You may know us from Risk World, which is our annual conference. from Risk Management Magazine or from Rimscast, which actually I've always wanted to do this, won the NYSAE Award for Excellence in Marketing and Communications in 2023. Okay, self-aggrandizing out of the way. I'm familiar with our panelists, one of whom is somebody I've known for a really long time. That's Lynn Haley Pilarski. And I had the pleasure of meeting our panelists earlier this week. So there's going to be a lot of great camaraderie here. So let's dive right in. And since Lynn is over to my right, my left, I'm going to start with Lynn. Lynn, I'm going to kick it off with you. Would you please share your story of the why, when, and how you pivoted out of a legal career?
Thanks for having me. I truly appreciate it, and I'm excited to share my story. So my story goes way back to law school. Like many students approaching graduation, I remember sitting in the Student Career Service Center applying for every job on the school's board. So this was pre-LinkedIn. So this is the place where you actually went physically and you looked at a job posting that was posted on with a pin on a bulletin board. I remember applying for any job opening I could find. Being from Michigan, I applied to the legal departments of the big three automakers, even though they weren't hiring at the time. I heard no responses back from the autos, and I eventually obtained a position at a mid-sized insurance law firm where I joined the product liability and insurance coverage team. A year later, I received a call from General Motors requesting an interview. After the interview, I heard nothing. I heard nothing back for a long period of time, not even a rejection. This callback cycle repeated for a few years. And then after my fourth callback, I interviewed again and was asked if I would be interested in a position in corporate risk management in the insurance group. And not fully knowing exactly what risk management was, but being really comfortable with my insurance background, I without hesitation said yes. I mean, it was GM after all. I knew I needed to explore the opportunity. And I was asked the pivot question during my interview with GM. They asked me, why would I consider leaving the practice of law? And my answer was really easy. I had spent the last 4 years learning about insurance and tracking my time in increments of point one and point two. I'm sure many of you on this call are very much aware of the non-stop tracking of time. And I was really ready for a change. Living in Michigan, I understand the pivotal role the autos industry plays in our community, really. There's a saying here in Michigan that at least one of your neighbors to the right or to the left of you works for the automaker in some capacity. It's so very, very true. And I knew that position with GM would provide a stable lifestyle. And I was, quite frankly, ready to make the switch. As for transitioning to risk management and insurance rather than working for the legal staff, I knew I was always going to be an attorney. You don't leave your degree and your skills at the door. With 4 years of insurance coverage experience, I was really ready to apply my skills to a new challenge, regardless what the title or the department was. And ironically, over the last few years, I was promoted, and I actually now have the title Counsel Risk Management Insurance at GM. But I'm still do not report to the legal staff. I'm fully within the Treasury Department, where risk management falls within General Motors, and work with a sea of MBAs. So I'm one JD that sticks out amongst all of my MBA colleagues.
Excellent. Thank you, Lynn. And I've had the pleasure of knowing Lynn for the last 4+ years. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little while. Let's move over to Peter. Same question. Tell us a little bit about your story. Give us the why, when, and how, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm also from Michigan, by the way. Neither here nor there. I've been in New York for a long time. I after law school, I worked for probably 10 years at big New York law firms doing commercial litigation, writing nasty letters day after day, filing motions, taking depositions, the usual, which was great. And but probably halfway through that period, I just, I wasn't looking for a 24-hour-a-day job. I had other interests. I wanted to work more for a single flag rather than, changing project to project, client to client. which is all fine. I was a little tired of the subterranean politics at law firms also. And so I started applying for in-house jobs, just thinking, okay, I'll be assistant general counsel or associate general counsel somewhere for, Morgan Stanley or McGraw-Hill or whoever it was. And it was just every time I was doing that, it was not the right time to go in-house, apparently, or at least for me. And at one point, I just came across a job site that was focused on risk and compliance. And I had no idea what either of those things are other than generically as words. I had no idea there was I obviously am aware there's an insurance industry, but I didn't really know there was risk management or compliance in corporations. And so I started looking into the jobs on the site, and one of them was to be an insurance adjuster. Great transition for someone who'd been a litigator. You're and this is obviously on the claims side. So you have your insureds and they get a claim in and you're the adjuster. Not that different than auto glass adjusting. Something happened, it's bad. How much is it going to cost? How are we going to fix it? In my case, I've worked in directors and officers liability. So quite a bit more interesting than auto glass adjusting. So you're investigating securities class actions or whatever it may be, and looking to resolve. And it's sort of not in-house like Lynn or someone in the legal department at a corporation, but it is similar or sort of parallel in the sense that you're not the day-to-day litigator, but you are involved in the litigation. You're talking to the lawyers, you're asking questions, you're making suggestions, and you are watching the growth of the case from a litigation that's in early stages to something that, for whatever reason, loss of a motion to dismiss or discovery is not looking like it's going to go well, for whatever reason, is ready to get a move toward resolution. And that's when the insurance folks are very much involved. It's our money that backs up, in general, the defense costs and the settlement costs. And so I just found it very engaging. I worked at AIG for 18 years. I'm now at Berkshire Hathaway. And, at AIG, we were very sort of leaning in rather than leaning out, aggressive. It sort of suited my personality and litigation background. And over time, it's been a great career for me. It's literally like a craft or an expertise that you develop over time. And it's been really satisfying.
Terrific. Seems like we're going to get a variety of perspectives here. Sarah, let's hear from you. Give us dish, please.
Sure. Thanks, Justin. So how I pivoted. So I obviously went to law school. And my first job out of law school was at an insurance law firm. And we focused on doing a lot of coverage work, so claims work, but also as my career developed in the practice of law, I did a lot of coverage litigation, which I absolutely loved. And after being in private practice for 9 years, or probably at that 8-year mark, a client of mine from my first year out of law school, this amazing woman and her sister owned a managing general agency, and we kept in touch. She actually kept in touch with me because I felt I was too junior to keep in touch with a woman who owns her own business in the space. But we would meet every year for a drink or for lunch. And at about my 8-year mark in private practice, we met for a drink, and she and her sister and I started talking, and she decided that I needed a senior woman mentor in the insurance law space. And so she didn't really have someone in the legal side of things, but she did have a very close friend who was at an insurance broker. And she asked if I would be open to meeting her friend for breakfast. And of course I said yes. Networking, I knew was the right thing to do. So I went to this breakfast with this high up woman at an insurance broker, thinking I was going to meet my mentor, probably the first mentor I was going to actually have since graduating from law school. And we had a great breakfast, and she invited me in to meet with her colleagues. And I course, my response at that point was, I'm really happy where I am. And she's like, no. She's like, just come in, meet people, you just never know. And so over the next year, I spent time just meeting some of her colleagues, and a year later, they offered me a job. And so that's kind of how I pivoted. It was after 9 years of being in private practice. And that was about 10 and a half years ago. And it was the best decision I've ever made, being now in-house, whether it's an insurance company or an insurance broker. My career has changed so much and evolved so much. There's just so much opportunity that you really don't know about until you get here. And it's just been an amazing, amazing experience for me.
Excellent. And since you mentioned mentorship, Sarah, we're going to stick with you for a moment. Could you tell us a little bit more about the role that mentors played in your career transition and how that impacted your own style of mentoring?
Yeah, that's a good question. So obviously the thought of having a mentor is actually what made me pivot, was meeting this senior woman in the industry. But since then, at my prior employer, which was Marsh, in my mind, I had one formal mentor. He probably disagrees and just says we're friends. And then I had a few other informal mentors along the way. Here, being at Lockton, I have also one formal mentor and a few informal mentors. And mentors not only changed my career trajectory, taking me out of the legal practice and putting me directly in the insurance industry, but I've just learned so much, and I've learned so many different things from my mentors. So, thinking back to my mentor at Marsh, he was a jack of all trades, and I've learned, and I still learn so much from him, very warm and very engaged. And then my mentor here at Lockton is very, very different. He's actually the first person I interviewed with at Lockton. And as soon as I joined, I asked him if he'd be my mentor. He and I are very different. He likes to whiteboard, and I don't. Like, things move too fast for me to stop and think. And so when I asked him to be my mentor, he actually gave me a homework assignment for the first 6 weeks of our mentorship. And every week I had to write down 6 introspective thoughts about myself, whether it was about work or personal life, but something about myself. And it was the first time I'd ever done that. And it really got me to thinking. It taught me how to listen better. It taught me how to ask better questions of myself. And so my mentor style now is kind of a combination of everything that I've learned from my mentors throughout my career. And being at Lockton, just learning how to ask the right questions, that is a skill that I'm still trying to master. It's actually really, really hard to do, but that's something right now that I'm focusing on as I mentor other people.
Excellent. And I'm going to ask the same question over to Lynn. Lynn, what role did mentors play in your career transition, and how has that impacted your own style?
So it's interesting because I don't think, like Sarah, I did not have a formal mentor, but I think what's important is you have mentors and people, they may not even know it, right? So for me, while I may not have had a formal mentor, I had champions. And for me, the role of a champion is super important. Not only are they going to give you career advice and help you walk through whatever stage or project or, specific situation you're in, but they're also, for me, a champion helps you understand what your skills are, and they help build you up. I could be on a project that I've known nothing about, and I have a champion that says, Lynn, you can do this. I know you can. This is what you bring to the project. So I think it's super important to be able to find, whether it's a formal or an informal mentor, who is your champion. I've been at GM for 26 years now, and I am still learning and I still have my champions, but I'm also in my mentor era, if you will. So I've now taken on the role of being the mentor, right? So I'm very, very active with RIMS, Justin, with your organization. I'm the president of RIMS in Michigan, and we work a lot with our students entering the risk management and insurance world. They actually have degrees in risk management that you can get, a 4-year degree. And so, working with the universities, talking to students, getting them actively excited about entering the job force, entering risk management and insurance and the careers that are involved there. And also, working with people that are transitioning. You could be in different stages in your career and entering into risk management, I think it's really important to have these conversations about what the roles and responsibilities are, and teaching people about the opportunities that insurance gives to the world. I will say that because I'm in my mentor era, and I know this is about people considering the pivot from the law. My offer is this. I'm always happy to answer questions, and if someone is interested in it and you want to make a pivot, my contact information is here. I'm happy to talk to you about risk management insurance, and I can be your champion.
Terrific. And Peter, same, over to you.
That's great. I think unanimously didn't per se have a mentor that was involved in the pivot or the transition, but boy, when I think about it to the extent that I'm sort of proud, I'm proud of my legal career, but pure legal career, but I'm proud of what I built within the insurance industry, and I would all of it I would credit to the guy who was my boss at AIG most of the time. Unfortunately, passed away. Wonderful guy, and Sarah made me think that describing the interest. I bet I know who the jack of all trades was too, but the describing the introspection quiz. So there's a famous book by Daniel Kahneman and won the Pulitzer, no, sorry, Nobel for this, called Fast and Slow Thinking. And my boss was the epitome of slow thinking, meaning you want to talk about a poker face, you want to talk about perfectly comfortable with silence and no reaction as you lay something out, because he is playing it through. Whereas I'm the epitome of fast thinking. I'm like I'm great if there's a jaguar that walks in the room and instinctive reaction, but that's also tends toward maybe taking the quickest, the lowest hanging fruit intellectually, if you will. And boy, did that teach me to moderate some of those tendencies and so on. And I mean, he was just in the world of insurance adjusting, it's about when's that moment to speak up, when's that moment to get involved, when is that moment to push the other parties, when is the moment to sit back and play it out. So I mean, in so many ways, I really credit him with tremendous mentorship. As I moved in the last 2 years to Berkshire Hathaway, I'm doing the same thing I've always done, adjusting or dealing with cases, but I'm actually doing a lot more mentoring now because I'm definitely the graybeard here, and was brought in partly because of sort of having gone through the wars and having a lot of frontline primary insurance in big cases, and I'm really enjoying passing some of that on. So there again, it's like I don't wake up, how can I mentor somebody? But actually, I'm really enjoying it.
Excellent. And before we move on, I just want to remind our audience that you are welcome to drop a question in the question and answer box at any time, and we will try to collect them and answer as many as we can toward the end. All right, so the next question revolves around a four-letter word, and that four-letter word starts with an S. It's sexy. I've never actually said that word on a webinar before, but let's just say it. The insurance industry is sexy. It's an industry of influence and policy and power. Some might just call it attractive. I don't know. Lynn, I was hoping that you could speak from an association perspective and maybe some of the things that we've worked on at RIMS about your role specifically on the RIMS Public Policy Committee and how that influence, policy, and power all is entangled in that sexiness.
It is. I can talk about RIMS public policy for an entire session.
Yes.
Advocacy is actually my absolute favorite topic, and it is such a fun thing to be able to do in the insurance industry. Currently, I am the chair of the RIMS Public Policy Committee. It's a purely voluntary position, but I love it so much that I make sure that I put, my time and efforts into it. And just for background, The public policy group promotes and supports the risk management and insurance industry by analyzing industry-specific legislation, regulation, and legal issues. The group recommends policy and viewpoints from a risk management perspective while providing the risk management response to issues affecting our profession. Mostly we're looking from the risk manager's perspective, so the insured's perspective, but there are certainly topics that go across all industries, including the insurer side of the aisle. When we talk about things like disclosures and litigation funding. Those are some of the things that we do. I will say from a background perspective, when I first met Justin, I joined the RIMS Public Policy Committee in 2019 after attending an event called RIMS on the Hill, or the Legislative Summit. It's basically a lobbying opportunity for the insurance industry. I was hooked and will support RIMS advocacy positions for as long as they will have me. The event allows for personal and professional growth like no other, really. It lets us as risk professionals and insurance people learn about legislation impacting our group, and it gives us really a deep understanding of the lobbying process, and opens the doors to the insurance industry and risk managers to having actual conversations with congressional members and their staff on insurance-related legislation. Without a doubt, it's an amazing experience. And it's something that having a JD has been incredibly helpful for, because we are constantly looking and analyzing pieces of legislation and understanding how the potential acts could affect insurance is critical. It's a different way of thinking, and I'm very happy to have those skills. And so I'm going to put a plug in, Justin. So the next legislative summit is going to be March 19th and 20th. And so we invite anyone that's interested to come down to Washington, D.C. We spend a day. It's going to be at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce on the 19th. We bring in congressional staff members. We have speakers, people that are supporting either members or someone who is a specialist in the area of the legislation that is being proposed and that we're lobbying for. They talk about what it is, what the act means, and we go through, why is this important? And they teach you how to lobby. And it's an amazing event. And so if anyone is interested in coming down and being a lobbyist part-time, it's March 19th and 20th, and you can find the information at the RIMS website.
Yes, and I can say, I was at the 2018 Legislative Summit, and that was my one and only experience so far, having that chance to be up on the Hill. And it's exciting to be there, and it's just as exciting, maybe not as exciting, but just as impactful if you meet with congressional staff as opposed to the congressman or congresswoman who is on there, because those staff members know how to get certain things in front of the people in power. So they're
the doers.
Yes, they are. Now, also wanted to hear about government affairs from Sarah, because you've got the corporate perspective regarding government affairs at Lockton. So I was hoping you could fill us in on that.
Yeah, sure. And I echo Lynn's energy. We, not even specific to corporate as a whole, but for our digital asset or blockchain team, I am lucky enough to get to go to DC every quarter to spend a couple of days with our head of government affairs and our external lobbyists, meeting with staffers, meeting with Congress people, meeting with the SEC, the CFTC. And as an insurance broker, we're kind of an unbiased voice in the digital asset space, where there right now is a lack of regulatory certainty. And so we get to go and advocate on a no-name basis for our clients' position with respect to proposed bills. But then we also get to advocate and bring a voice to the insurance industry and explain why the insurance industry needs regulatory certainty and why what the politicians are doing is incredibly important. And it is probably the highlight of what I get to do. There is something about having a voice, getting to respond to proposed bills. It's just an experience that I never thought I would have So totally echo Lynn's energy. I will say, personally, I don't think I could do this as well as I have been doing it without a JD. Like there's something about going to law school, working as a lawyer, and the way it teaches you to think and be prepared for whatever questions come your way. And so, but for being a lawyer, I don't think I'd be as effective as I am today when we make those DC trips. And just a very short story, I was speaking on an internal panel the other day with our head of government relations and our external lobbyists, and they told a story which I had not heard before about how they were just in DC, I think, focusing either on taxes or ERISA, so something not what I was doing. And I was not with them, and they told a story about how one of the staffers of a congressman we visited with 3 times had specifically asked about me. And it was that moment, first of all, I was turning bright red on stage and I could like feel my face turning red. But it was that moment where I was kind of like, I knew how I felt, but hearing back that someone actually remembers me from all of our meetings just made me feel like I was really being productive. And so it's just such a special opportunity.
Excellent. And let's also wanted to remind everyone, let everybody know out there that Kim is Kim is going to share links that we mention in later correspondence. And over to Peter. Peter, we're gonna shift gears for a little bit. Could you share with us the landscape of myriad careers in the insurance industry that you believe are a good fit for JDs seeking a transition?
If I can just step back a minute, I realize that I've completely missed the at least from an external perspective, sexy portion of the of an insurance career. Because actually it does sound cool to go to Washington and hobnob and try to get things done. And it's funny, it reminds me, I had a friend who was in the industry almost as long as me. He's now just doing day trading. But anyway, he single, and he would tell me how all the ways he had to kind of avoid saying at parties and introducing himself as, yeah, I'm an insurance claims adjuster. So I think a lot of people, but the reality is I actually have found the job really exciting and fun. I mean, the area that I work in is, the claims are on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. They involve the C-suite. They may not be the biggest dollar claims out there, but they are the claims that the corporation gets most excited about, that the biggest plaintiff firms are, advertising their ability to attack corporate fraud, so it is actually plenty exciting. Anyway, the question was about networking. So in my role, and just my predilection, mediations are the way. The cases that we handle in general are too big to go to trial. There have been in securities litigation 20 or less since 1998 securities stock fraud, class actions that have gone to trial. And there's a reason for that, which is the damages are huge and the plaintiffs, nobody wants to try them, but even the plaintiffs don't want to try them. They want to build up a claim of damages, create risk, and then tell Lynn to tell the board of GM, okay, go, we need X to settle this. And of course, at insurance, we're involved in this. Mediations are the primary venue then to get rid of these lawsuits. And that's where I found I've taken the most enjoyment if I had to pick a single thing. So the network that I've done is I'm really familiar with the mediators, and many of them absolutely, friends, and the lawyers that at the big firms that are repeat players, and even the plaintiffs to some extent. So and certainly other insurance adjusters and coverage counsel in that area. So that's the kind of network I've built. I see that was the next question.
Yeah, that's okay there, Peter. I didn't want to cut. You were giving us cold.
Don't go to me on that one. Sorry, I shifted naturally, but I will talk about myriad careers. Yeah, so insurance adjuster is what I've been talking about, what I'm excited about. Lynn has given you that whole area of risk and compliance inside a company, and brokers. That's another one. And there's also, within an insurance company like mine, there's my world of financial lines or management liability, directors and officers, EPL, errors and omissions, but there's also casualty, factory explosions and, huge hundreds of millions of dollars losses for, and certainly careers for people who have, scientific or mathematical kind of background along with the JD, as well as the legal coverage department in insurance companies, which handles lawsuits when the insurance company is sued because they failed to cover something that the insured policyholder believes should be covered, as an example, or the corporate legal department. There are careers there, just a straight in-house legal career. So there really are, the options are very, very, very wide. So anyway, sorry to jump topics, but
Quite all right, no problem. So nice segue into the networking effect. We're going to talk about that for a moment. We're going to talk about the groups, organizations, and associations that are go-to sources to engage in insurance. Obviously, shameless self-promoter, but it's not self-promotion. It's not my organization.
I've been promoting.
You have, and we always. And just for the record, folks, Lynn's enthusiasm earlier, she's not pouring it on. This is how she actually is all the time when she talks about advocacy. So that's genuine. And it's tough to meet that level sometimes. But uh, RIMS is, of course, I think RIMS is the best one, not just because I'm employed there. We've got Risk World, which is our annual conference. We have 10,000 people from all over the world who come to a different major US city every year to share information, to network, to learn, and to hear some great keynotes. So that's one. We also have our local chapters that can do Risk World on a very miniaturized scale, which is great because it gets really to the heart of what's affecting them in their geographic area. And there are some others that I'm going to let some other folks discuss. Let's go over to Sarah. We haven't heard from you in a little while. What are some organizations or groups that are your go-tos?
Yeah, I'd say there are three that are my go-to. RIMS being one of them, absolutely. And then PLES, Professional Liability Underwriting Society, is a really big one in the insurance space. They provide educational sessions. They do great D&O, cyber, employment practices, liability events. They do charitable work. They do social events. So PLES is a really, really big one. And then I just wanted to mention the Bridge Transcend, which is a newer organization over the last few years, focused on advocating for women and other people with diverse backgrounds and supporting them in their career growth. So those are the three that I would mention.
All right, Lynn, over to you.
The other entity besides RIMS is ERMI. They do a lot of insurance risk management work. There's a lot of educational seminars that you're able to get an understanding of, insurance policies, insurance content, just to help get you familiar with the industry. But the gold standard, in my opinion, is RIMS. I will say, if you're interested, as the president of RIMS chapter in Michigan, a lot of the states have local chapters. So if you're interested, meetings are free. They are usually once a month. They're either some people are still hybrid, so you can join an online session in person. The networking that you can get there from other either risk managers or insurance companies, a lot of brokers attend that. I think it is a worthwhile endeavor so that you can try and build your network if this is something that you're interested in doing.
And I would also make it a point to emphasize that LinkedIn is one of the best networking places around also. And, live in person is always preferable for me, but, when you need to supplement it, LinkedIn is there for you. And also, quick note, ERMI is the International Risk Management Institute for anyone who does not yet know about them. And all right, so we got that. And before we open it up for questions, I was hoping we could go around the virtual room one more time and share some advice for lawyers seeking a transition from the practice of law to a non-legal business role. So we're going to go back to somebody who's already sort of talked about this a little bit, but we can get a little bit deeper. Peter, go right ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking about this one, and it's you know, I personally as I said, I slipped into this through a job site. I just thought, well, okay, I'm looking. Why don't I try on this one? And it was risk and compliance. So it was very happenstance that I sort of came over, and so I guess my first piece of advice would be keep a very open mind and you know, honestly, for anyone who is transitioning, you've 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 chosen an area, you've legal, you've got your JD, you've worked in a law firm or what have you, and you now want to transition potentially out of the legal profession, but using the legal profession. That in itself is about your life. So I just would encourage you to do as much thinking and feeling and considering of options. And you know, obviously, look, if you need a job, you just grab and take what there is. But you know, hopefully it's a process of, oh, what isn't quite working? Why do I want to leave? And therefore, what does that say about what I should be focusing on next?
All right. Before we move on, just want to remind everyone out there, you can put your questions in the Q&A box and we will address as many as we can in a little bit. Same question though, over to Sarah. What pieces of advice do you have for lawyers seeking a transition from the practice of law to a non-legal business role?
Honestly, my advice is just do it. Like, you have no idea how much opportunity there is once you leave a law firm, whether you're a litigator or a corporate attorney. Leaving the law firm, coming to the insurance industry, and Peter mentioned a lot of the options, but there are so many more out there. You can work in captive insurance, you can work at a reinsurance company, you can work as head of operations like I do in one of my roles. Like, you can recreate yourself so many times and continue to grow. There's just no ceiling. So really, my advice is just do it.
All right.
Yeah, but
Little bit of copyright infringement from Nike, but we'll take it. We'll take it. That's all right.
Sorry, should have known better.
It fully applies though, without a doubt, pivot, right? So just do it. It is exactly what it is. It was the best decision I ever made 26 years ago. You know, you have to believe in yourself. You have the skills, even though you think, oh my God, I went to law school, I'm not going to be an attorney. You will always be an attorney. You have that JD in your pocket. It is skills that you will have for the rest of your life, right? It's going, those skills sharpen your analytical skills. They give you the ability to develop, you know, and dissect problems, spot risks. You know, issue spotting is something that you do on a daily basis in this industry. You know, I look at contracts every single day, or I'm brought into a complex a business transaction where we're, you know, building a brand new company, or there's a merger and acquisition, a joint venture development. These are things that the law degree helps me understand. I can instantly spot the things that I need to do in the area that I am responsible in insurance. And so, you know, don't think, oh, you know, what's going to happen because I'm not an attorney. You are always going to be an attorney. You're just going to take those skills that you have learned and apply them to a new career. And without a doubt, insurance gives you the opportunity to, you know, do things beyond what you thought when you know, signed up as a 1L in law school.
Excellent. We've got some questions coming in. I got a really great one that just came in. I'm going to put it in the chat for everyone to mull over for a moment, but I've got kind of something else that's on everyone's minds. Speak a little bit about the role or importance of additional or continuing education and what transfers, what's applicable, that sort of thing. Whoever wants to go first, open floor.
I'll jump in if no one else is. So
Go for it.
It's a really good question. First of all, everything transfers. So being a lawyer teaches you how to think, to Lynn's point. It really teaches you how to issue spot, whether you're a litigator or a corporate attorney, it doesn't matter. all of that transfers with you. It prepares you to speak on panels if that's what you want to do. It prepares you to become a reps and warranties broker or underwriter if that's what you want to do because of your corporate background, or to go into contracts. Like we all have contract teams, review teams at our brokers, at our brokerages. So everything kind of does transfer. From a continuing education perspective, I think it depends. Like I still do CLEs and things like that. I'm also licensed as an insurance broker, so I do continuing education. So I learn in so many ways, but the best way that I continue learning, honestly, is from talking to clients, especially because now I'm focused on an emerging growth area. I learn from speaking to engineers, from speaking to CEOs, from speaking to CFOs. It's constant learning.
There was a question about, well, what if I'm in a corporate law background and is, for instance, my job claims, more, you're looking for litigators? Not really, not at all. And as a matter of fact, more broadly, if you have JD on your resume, you're more than qualified for pretty much anything in insurance. Okay. Just, as sexy as it is, it translates very well for all the reasons folks have been talking about. And corporate law, in fact, I mean, a whole half of the stuff on my plate are transactional cases involving corporate transactions, which have gone sideways, or where there's just an objection to the price or process paid in a transaction. I mean, corporate law issues are all over what we do, and in fact are an advantage compared with someone like me coming from a litigation background. I didn't really have that training, and I've learned a lot on the job. So if you're coming in with that, the JD is more than sufficient to be, and corporate law background is more than sufficient to be an adjuster, and you're actually coming in with some knowledge that a lot of other adjusters who are former litigators, which is pretty typical, don't have.
All right. We have a question, and it's pretty cool, and I think this is something that maybe some other folks, it may be on their mind, they just don't want to put it in the box, but we've got a great one. So how do you convince the hiring manager or the person on the other side of the computer or the other side of the desk to give you an interview when all your experience is at law firms on your resume? You have a special trick or technique?
I'll answer that question. So for me, I sort of said this already, but that JD is super helpful in the world of insurance, because an insurance policy is a contract, right? As an attorney, you're trained to interpret complex legal contracts, and an insurance policy is the most complex contract in the market, right? And so this is what you do on a daily basis. You may not be in a law firm, but you still bring those skills. And it's understanding the legal aspects of the insurance policies and contracts and liability issues. It's critical to both the purchase of a policy, term negotiation, claim resolution and handling, and quite frankly, talking to the legal staff that is going to handle this claim. So, on a daily basis, if you're talking about litigation, you see complaints and you understand what the motion practice is. You already speak their language. You may, have pivoted outside of the actual legal department, but you're able to have those conversations using the same vocabulary that the in-house legal firm is used to seeing, or the insurance company is used to seeing. And I will say I'm going to speak to Sarah, and I worked with Sarah when I was at Marsh. So Sarah and Peter both have this experience. When you're talking about professional lines, and this is the D&O, E&O, professional liability type of claims, I'd say that if you're sitting in a room of underwriters, probably 70% of them are JDs themselves. So it is a complex world, and they're used to seeing attorneys pivoting into the insurance industry. I know Sarah or Peter, if you have anything to add to that.
Oh, but that does remind me, though, that and just sorry for the competition if it feels like that. There is also something called the Professional Liability Underwriting Society, and I have been to that. That's another networking opportunity that as an adjuster, I get invited to stuff occasionally, but doesn't compare to RIMS. I know.
Well, nothing ever really does. Okay. Uh, okay. Uh, we brought up, there was a good point earlier, not just about transitioning into the new role, but what about for lawyers who may not have been practicing for too many years prior to applying? Any special tips there?
I got
Go
hired
for it.
after 4 years. So that was not too many years in the, insurance coverage world. Just be persistent. If it's something that's interesting to you, then like Sarah said, just do it.
Yeah.
You've got to take the opportunity, believe in yourself and make the leap.
And when you're interviewing for a non-legal job in risk or insurance, how important is your law school transcript? I mean, Lynn, you just said it was 4 years. Do they?
I don't even know where my transcript is now.
Ah,
Yeah, I don't. I think coming from a law firm or the, straight out legal profession to insurance, things get easier and more flexible. Also includes flexible working. Um, there are many jobs, adjuster jobs in particular, where someone who hasn't been work has taken some years off, whether it's children or some other transitional situation coming back in. It's not like law firms where everything is very, very lockstep. And if you kind of step out for a while, you might have difficulty getting in. Insurance, there's a lot of need for adjusters, at least in my world, and there are a lot of companies. Ours isn't one of them at the moment, that offer a lot of really flexible, remote working opportunities, uh, maybe even part-time, et cetera. So I I think it's a pretty good industry to look at if that's one of your concerns, frankly.
Justin, just touching on actually something I think that speaks to almost all the questions we've addressed. I've learned that relationships are everything, especially in the insurance industry. So even if you know no one in the space, like Lynn volunteered to talk to you, I'm sure Peter and I would love to talk to you too, but find someone who went to your law school who's in insurance, find someone who went to your college or you're, from the same hometown, just find someone. Maybe don't ask them for a job, ask them to meet for coffee or ask for 10 minutes to talk on the phone just to hear their story, to learn about them. And I am telling you, this is one industry where that will matter. And that person might introduce you to 2 other people who might introduce you to 5 other people. So it's not just about where you're coming from and what you look like on paper, but it's also about relationships and how you reach out and how you interact with other people as well.
all right, excellent. And Sarah, since we have you on, do you want to mention how your role has influenced or been tied connected to new products?
Yeah, geez, wow. Yeah, well, so back at Marsh, which is where I worked before, I was the D&O product leader. So I was in charge of coming up with new products or enhancements specific to the directors and officers liability product. Here at Lockton, in my cryptocurrency related role, we come up with new products all the time. Like whether it's working with an insurance company and creating something that's unique to the cryptocurrency space, working with Lockton Re, our sister reinsurance broker, working with our alternative risk team, which is a fancy way of saying captives. We work on creating new products all the time. And it's not just my team, like the larger financial services division that I'm part of, we do the same thing. There's just, like when I say there's so much opportunity in the insurance space, like I'm not just saying that, it's really true. And it's what you make of it. And if you want to be innovative, there's so much room for you to be innovative.
All right, excellent. I got one more here, and then I think we're going to get ready to wrap things up. What if the pivot does not work, or or the person decides they want to go back to practicing law? Is that feasible? I mean, obviously it's not an ideal situation, but things come up, your life changes and things like that. What are your thoughts on that?
It's
Oh,
interesting because I don't know many people that pivot back. I think it is really that rewarding and it's that diverse. And so you may not like the position that you have that you first land in the insurance industry, but there are so many different positions, whether it's in the brokerage, whether it's in an insurance company, a captive insurer. There are so many opportunities in the industry itself. I personally don't know anyone that has actually pivoted backwards because of the opportunities that are offered in the insurance industry. Maybe Sarah or Peter know anyone.
No,
I
I've
don't,
known
but I
a
would say
few.
it's,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just going to say I've known a few adjusters who tried being a broker for a while, and it was too hot in the kitchen, and they came. And there are folks that go on to be mediators, but that's more of a practice of law, I guess. But yeah, not really. It's pretty rare to go out and be a lawyer again.
Yeah. Now, what if you've
And I
been,
don't see why it would. Oh, sorry,
I-
I was just gonna say I don't see why that would be an issue to pivot back, because you're learning something new, and that's going to only enhance what you do while you practice law.
Yeah, and maybe you come back and do insurance coverage work where Sarah and I, started.
yeah.
That's for sure. I do see a question about what if you've been in a law firm for like a long time, like more than 20 years?
Yeah.
And is that a barrier? And again, I think the insurance industry is incredibly flexible in terms of who they're looking for and who they think can do the job and what sort of job they can make available. And I interviewed a lot of candidates over the years, and we had plenty of folks. I think clearly age isn't the issue. It's just, is this, person seem, intellectually prepared, the right sort of, I'm curious, I want to know things, I'm ready to, get down into the details and read the contract. And so as long as they're capable of doing all that, which is, I mean, Lynn's made the point, it's all about a contract. It's pretty detailed and puzzling sometimes, but that's what it's about. If you can do that, you can work in insurance.
Excellent. Well, it's been a real pleasure to speak with you all and get your various perspectives. We always talk about a range of perspectives at RIMS, but that's what we're getting here today. I was very pleased and happy and privileged to be your moderator today. Quick little plug for myself. I host RIMScast every Tuesday. A new episode comes out. We are available. It's a free, publicly facing podcast. It's the official weekly podcast of the Risk and Insurance Management Society. You can find it on any podcasting app, so please subscribe. It's been a pleasure to be with you all today. And now I'm going to hand it back to Kim from Ex Judicata.
Thank you all so much. This was just wonderful. I know Lynn and Peter and Sarah and Justin mentioned a number of organizations or associations. I'll collect that information. I'll have the links and I'll share it with all of the attendees as well. So I'll make sure everyone has that. And then this will be on demand probably about tomorrow afternoon. Thank you all very, very much. We really appreciate you attending. And thank you, Lynn and Peter and Sarah and Justin. You guys are amazing.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.